and their clinical significance. This is, by the way, this will mark the end of the first chapter of Guyton under motor physiology. So we've done the length monitoring systems. Now we are going for the tension monitoring systems. There are multiple senses that look at tension. The tension, by the way, depends on the muscle length, of course, the load on the muscle, and the degree of fatigue on the muscle, in the muscle. Okay. And what are the systems? Vision is one. You see your muscle contracting. You have a sense of how much pressure is under. The afferents of the overlying skin, the muscle itself, and the joints, they combine to give the CNS a sense of how much tension is the muscle experiencing. And then you of course have the Golgi tendon organs themselves giving direct information to the muscle, to the CNS. Okay, the structural difference between muscle spindle and Golgi tendon, as I mentioned earlier, is that muscle spindle is in parallel to the extrafusal fibers. The GTOs are in series. Okay, so if this is, welcome back. Oh, so if this is the extrafusal fiber, right at the tendinous end you will have the GTOs intertwined with its collagen fibers. Okay, the tendinous insertions has collagen, right? So in series with the extrafusal fiber, axis wise in series, you have embedded GTOs. Okay, unlike the spindles which lie in parallel with the fibers. Obviously it's not a 3D diagram. I will not be able to do justice with it, but anatomy books are full of these pictures. You can have a look at them, inshallah. Okay. So, remember this diagram? I showed you the upper part of this diagram, if you remember. Yes? This is the diagram that you saw when we were discussing muscle spindle. So I told you that muscle spindle is also conceived as a protective mechanism for muscle length, muscle stretch. That if you were to load the bicep in this example by putting these weights in the hand of the individual, the muscle would lengthen as it has here. Okay, it is lengthening, the hand is going down, and as soon as the stretch reflex kicks in, it goes up to sustain itself, and the length of the muscle is preserved. We've done this. Okay, I would like your focus now on the diagram below. This is the Golgi tendon organ reflex. Okay, right. So as you can see that when you put too much weight in the hand, the Golgi tendon organ senses too much pressure on the muscle. Okay, and what it does is it literally inhibits the motor neuron and lets go, lets it relax, and the load is dropped literally. So the tension in the muscle which developed due to the increased weight in the hand, that increased pressure. Welcome back. We will discuss its circuitry in a bit. Its circuitry is laid down in such a manner that it actually inhibits the agonist muscle in complete opposition to the stretch reflex which contracts it. When you look at the circuitry, you will know. Okay, just visually briefly look at this. That stretch reflex basically stabilizes the muscle to carry the load by contracting it. And couldn't it also have led to an isotonic? Yeah, it could have, but we're not discussing that. We are discussing the neuronal circuitry, the reflexes that work behind the scenes to either give you the sustained contraction, that's the stretch reflex, but if the tension is more than the muscle can handle, then the GTO inhibits the whole contraction and lets the thing go. Okay? When you look at the circuitry, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. Just a bit more stuff about the GTO. These are terminals, and this is important. The sensory afferent is not 1A or 2. Here it is 1B. Okay, so the speed is a bit less, but it's still pretty decent speed. 1B type of afferents are there, which serves the GTO reflex. Okay, and as I was mentioning, the arrangement is in series, wrapped around the collagen fibers at the tendinous ends, and this is interesting. It gets activated by both stretch and by contraction. Okay, because, well, if you know the anatomy, since it's in series, when the muscle stretches, the tendon stretches. Okay, the pressure is increased and GTO will get activated. But when the muscle contracts, the tendon is again pulled in the opposite direction, and there's a tension going on in that region again, and that is picked up again by GTO. Okay, so this is a difference. Then what else do you have? The comparison between 1A and 1B. So basically, the difference between 1A spindle and 1B GTO is that 1A keeps firing till the stretch is over, is reversed. Okay. However, 1B's firing peculiarity is that it will fire, peak, and then come down, even while you have sustained the scenario of the increased pressure. Okay. This is just some detail about the action potential. But the GTO, okay. So 1B is peculiar in the sense that it will fire up as soon as the pressure goes up. It stays there for a while, and then it comes down. Okay. Just a little bit of action potential related detail. Okay. Now this is the main circuit diagram. As you can see, that the origin is the tendinous insertion. This is the GTO right here. Okay, GTO. And you have the fiber going up. And this time the fiber is 1B. Okay, it goes up, enters the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. And now, check this out, what is happening here. No, we need an arrow. What is happening right here? So this is where the afferent is coming in, and it is synapsing with an interneuron which is inhibitory to the efferent fiber going back into the muscle. Okay, so this is not a monosynaptic reflex, it's a disynaptic reflex. There are two synapses. Yes? Please acknowledge. Okay. What about the others? Cool. Okay. So it has more synapses in it. Muscle stretch reflex is the only monosynaptic reflex. Okay. This is disynaptic, and this, if you notice, is inhibitory. So when 1B fires up, it actually inhibits the muscle in which the tension was developed. This is the main point which you need to understand and remember, please. That in a stretch reflex, if this were the case, if the muscle was being, say, stretched, the circuitry is laid down in a manner that you contract the muscle to relieve itself from the stretch. Okay? Welcome back. However, in this case, you have the stimulus which is different, the pressure inside the muscle. The fiber is different, 1B, this is the fiber, okay? And the synapses are different, and so is the effect. The effect is it turns off the alpha motor neuron, so there is actually relaxation in the agonist muscle to relieve the muscle of the pressure. Okay? And then you have a contralateral thing going. This is standard stuff, really. Contralateral muscle, the antagonist muscle, is being stimulated. So the net result on the knee is that the knee will go into flexion, okay, to relieve the agonist muscle of its increased pressure, okay. While if this were the stretch reflex, the exact opposite would take place. Is this clear? Okay. Let me apply. Acha, by the way, we only have a couple of slides left for the reflex and this chapter. I was thinking not to start anything new. So how about I take this half an hour from this class, finish the thing off, and you can take the next lecture off. How's that? How does that sound? I'm pretty sure that that sounds great. However, you need to promise me one thing. Yeah, not. Don't be so happy. Okay, very quickly. Look. Oh my, Subhanallah. Look at the messages now. So you, okay, Microsoft Team wala hi pagal ho gaya, and you guys have gone. Subhan. Look at the new faces. Allahu Akbar. They will just, they'll just be happy. Thank you, Samo. Thank you. All right, Laiba. I dig your excitement. Well done. Okay. So, but the twist, yes, thank you, Samo Altaf. There is a twist. I was just waiting for the enthusiasm to die down a bit. The promise is that you will take that 1 hour and revise. I think that's fair. The catch, there's no catch. The catch is, even the catch is good in this sense. You will revise whatever. Welcome back. Now, with this information, can you explain what happened in the clasp knife reflex scenario? Where you had the initial resistance, you know the initial resistance, okay? The initial resistance was of a spastic muscle longing for more contraction. Yeah? You should be okay with the initial resistance of the clasp knife reflex. Yes? Guys, come back. Please come back to the discussion. So the first part of the clasp knife reflex was related to the stretch reflex. Yes? The exaggerated stretch reflex due to the gamma motor efferent overdrive. Okay? But what about the sudden dramatic stand, that dramatic release, that dramatic giving in? How did that come about? Is because the opposing muscle, the antagonist, which was doing all of this, it just gave in because of its Golgi tendon reflex. The pressure got so much, okay? Yes, thank you, Abdullah. The pressure got so much because you were persisting on a muscle which was already angry. The pressure went really up, the GTO got triggered, and it cut off the agonist. And hence you have the classical clasp knife, and the muscle just gave in to your designs. Okay? Do you understand clasp knife reflex now? That stretch reflex and inverse stretch reflex they don't like each other. They oppose each other. How many of you? Be honest. Let me just remove the slide so that you can concentrate on what I'm saying. How many of you think that stretch reflex and inverse stretch reflex, i.e. the muscle spindle reflex and the Golgi tendon reflex, they oppose each other? No, that's a political answer. Well, the name actually says inverse as well, so not sure. Not sure is good. Not sure is all right. Okay. Now, yes. Abdullah is getting somewhere. So consider the example of the attention soldier. Okay? The attention soldier. The soldier who has been asked to stand in attention without any further instructions. They actually did that previously when they did not understand muscle physiology. So the soldiers after many hours would actually faint. This I'm sure we covered in CVS, in circulation, due to decrease pooling of blood and decreased cardiac output and all that sort of thing. Okay, now I bring your attention back to that guy, the soldier, who is standing straight in attention. Okay, of course, after some time, the rectus femoris will start to fatigue, right? I want you to think about these two questions. In this scenario, what happens to the GTO? What happens to the stretch? Think. Hold the answer. Don't just type away. Just think first. Show me a thumbs up if you are ready to answer, so that I know how many people are thinking. Welcome back. This is a virtual candy question, guys. Abdullah Javed, that's not a thumbs up. Virtual candy question, guys. Yeah. Come on, think. Osama, you have to. Raza, it's a good try, but you're not really there. Good try though. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, I guess I'll have the candy. So, what happened to the GTO reflex? So, we mentioned fatigue. When there is fatigue, when it's GTO reflex, it's all about pressure, isn't it? When the muscle is fatiguing, the pressure will go down. When the pressure goes down, the GTO reflex also goes down. Yes? When you inhibit the GTO reflex, what happens? The agonist comes out of its inhibition and it actually contracts. Nahin? You have inhibited the GTO reflex because the thing is fatiguing, the pressure is going down. Guys, come on. The free period awaits you. Yes? Come on, hurry up. Okay, Raza? Good. If you've understood that, this is easy. Not impaired, bete. This is the normal functioning of the GTO reflex. It works on pressure, remember? If the pressure goes up, it gets activated. If the pressure goes down, it becomes less or inactivated. Okay? So in this case, it has gone down. The whole thing is when it goes down, because of the circuitry involved, the agonist is activated. Okay? Remember in the GTO reflex, we are inhibiting the agonist. But when we inhibit the inhibitor, that means we are facilitating the agonist into contraction. What about the stretch reflex? Stretch reflex is simple. When the rectus femoris, excuse me, when the rectus femoris fatigues, there is slight stretching of its tendon because it's fatiguing. It's stretching. As soon as it stretches, you know what stretch reflex does? Stretch. As soon as it stretches, there will be contraction of the agonist muscle due to stretch reflex mediated contraction. Result of both is that the agonist muscle contracts, the antagonist muscle gets inhibited. And so the rectus femoris is restored in its glory in the attention soldier, and it contracts, and the guy can, maintain his posture and stand attention. Usama Abdullah, I will throw you out now. Focus. The second last slide. The second last slide coming up, guys. Okay. Again, I am pretty sure you have done this thing, maybe not this diagram, but you have covered withdrawal reflexes. Withdrawal reflexes. How many of you have heard the term withdrawal reflex? Yes? Any takers for withdrawal reflex? Yeah, it's I think it's in the course. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's in the FSC course as well. Biology, withdrawal reflexes, stepping on the nail or a hot object, remember? Withdrawing of a limb, which it goes into trouble. Chalo, anyway. So, of course you have. Yeah, exactly. That's why I use the word ratta, parrots. That's exactly reflex action. It's a reflex which, yes, moves away from the stimulus. Yes. Now the ratta is coming through, isn't it? Oh, guy. 169 parrots right now on my screen. Chalo, shukar. Basically, it's that reflex. It's also called flexion reflexes. There are many. So all those reflexes, just hear me out now. Withdrawal reflexes are wired in our CNS to protect us from noxious stimulus. Noxious is anything which is undesirable, okay? Like many of you right now. Okay? I'm back, sorry. Okay. Okay, can you see this diagram now? Okay, first I will just explain the overall thing. This is the limb which is near the nail or the hot or whatever, okay, the noxious stimulus. This limb, okay, this limb is the other limb. This limb is in the line of trouble, not this limb. What do you want this limb to do? This limb, which is in the line of fire. You want it flexed, don't you? Because flexion will take it away from the noxious stimulus. Extension will bring it towards it. Flexion will take it away. That's why we say that flexion reflexes are withdrawal reflexes or protective reflexes, which take the limb away from the noxious stimulus. Do you understand? Good. So all you have to do now is flex this. This is a good way of understanding this rather complicated diagram. All you have to do is flex this limb and extend this limb. Why do I want to extend this limb? This one needs to extend. Why? To keep the balance. If you are to flex this, you may be hopping on one limb. Guess which limb that would be? This one. So this needs to be locked into extension to give you stability so that you can pull this limb away. Simple, right? If this is clear, just check out the receptor for this reflex or these reflexes. It's a Nausea receptor. Have you covered this in sensory physiology? Nausea receptors. These are pain receptors. Basically free nerve endings. Okay? So obviously it's a reflex arc. So this is the receptor of that reflex arc. This is the afferent fiber. This is the Flexion Reflex afferent. This is from one of my favorite books, Byrne and Levi. Okay, Guyton, I'm sure, has a similar diagram. So FRA is just the afferent of this Nausea receptor. Now this goes into the spinal cord. I'm gonna expand this bit now to show you the circuit diagram. Okay. Here we go. Oops. So concentrate on what is happening here. Is this area clear? Welcome back. Or should I magnify further? Clear. Good. So you must be able to see the afferent coming in here. Just follow the red dot and then coming in touch with this guy here. Let me draw the arrow. The interneuron, which then leads to a host of things. Host of things here. Host of things here. Nahi bete Abdullah, no. They are the maximum involved synapses in them. Because imagine moving two limbs at the same time. You can't do that with one synapse. Now this bit here, I will explain later in a bit. First, I will explain this. It's pretty simple, really. Okay? So this limb is the limb that was about to be affected by the nausea stimulus and the limb where the reflex got triggered in. So, look at this. This interneuron now will first inhibit the extensor, because I've already told you we want flexion in this limb. So obviously the nerve that is stimulating the extensor needs to be inhibited, and this is where it happens. It inhibits the extensor. Okay, and then naturally, obviously, it is supposed to stimulate the flexor of the knee. Okay, so with the extensor inhibited, the flexor stimulated, the knee flexes. Is this okay? Is this clear? There is another thing going on here, which is there is another interneuron that the afferent stimulates indirectly, of course. This one here. This one. Okay, which crosses the border over to the next side. It crosses to the next side. You see the crossing over? This. Welcome back. Basically, these reflexes have two main components. One is the flexor response, and the other is the cross extensor reflex or the cross extensor response. Okay, it is mediated by this crossing over neuron, which crosses over, which got stimulated here. Then it, because it has connections across the border on the other side of the spinal cord, and look what it does here. It does the opposite. Okay, it stimulates the extensor and it inhibits the flexor to give you extension. That is pretty straightforward stuff, I would say. This is called cross extensor reflex. Okay, this is your standard flexor reflex. So withdrawal reflexes have two components, the flexion component and the cross extensor reflex. Okay, I hope this is clear. Yes, but it needs to. It needs to for balancing purposes, because remember, flexion is a protective mechanism for removing the limb from a noxious environment. While it's doing that, the body needs structural support. The other part, the other limb needs to go into extension. Remember, this scenario is typical in. Then we hop bit. Our eyes are obviously closed, Abdullah, while we are walking. We are just walking with our eyes closed and having the misfortune of stepping on two separately placed nails at the same time. Yeah? What are the odds of that happening, Abdullah? Needle in a haystack? Anyway, coming back. So, this is an obvious thing to see in the lower limbs. Okay, because the lower limbs are basically. Yes, Abza, that's a befitting answer. The lower limbs are basically supporting you on the ground anyway. Imagine this happening with the upper limbs. This is very interesting and dramatic in the upper limb. So if you are silly enough to go to your mom in the kitchen and then try to in a clumsy way, try to help her with the stove, and you, khuda na khasta, burn or are about to burn your right hand, mashallah, then what happens is, as soon as the withdrawal reflex kicks in, the right hand goes into flexion and you pull it away, and guess what happens to the left hand? The right hand goes into flexion, the left hand goes into extension, although it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to, right? But this is how these withdrawal reflexes are wired. The other limb, welcome back. So in the upper limbs, it doesn't make a big sense to extend the other limb, but still it does. Okay? So this was withdrawal reflexes. It takes precedence over all other reflexes once it's triggered. So no stretch, no Golgi, nothing else. Once this is triggered, this is the boss. Okay? What else do we write here? Now, aside from afferent limb of reflexes. Okay, this is, and it's a strong flexor response. All the major joints of a limb may be involved. And if it's a very strong withdrawal reflex, by the way, even in the lower limb, then the lower limb, say the right side, will involve the left side lower limb. And if it's strong enough, it will also involve the upper limbs as well. This is what he's saying. This is how deeply embedded these reflexes are. Okay? With that, we come to an end of the first chapter of Guyton. Please have a. Okay. Chalo. Take care. Allah Hafiz.